So welcome to the class, students. So in this session we'll try to go through few concepts of your uh, fourth chapter, that is about WAN protocols. Okay, so we'll discuss few topics regarding your WAN protocols. Okay, so first topic is your ARPANET. Okay, so ARPANET is nothing but here before ARPANET, how ARPANET was created and how was its journey. Okay, why was ARPANET created, and what ARPANET's creation led to the development of what technology. Okay, so we will see in this session. Okay, so ARPANET is very important, mm, to know about your history of internet. Okay, so ARPANET was way in a way ARPANET contributed to the development of your internet. Okay, so ARPANET stands for Advanced Research Project Agency Network. Okay, so Advanced Research Project Agency Network, it was the first wide area network which has packet switching and which implemented TCP/IP protocol suite. Okay, so this was the first network, wide area network, and that means before this ARPANET, whatever you network you had was local area network. The network in which your computers were able to be connected were only through local area network. Okay, so there was no uh, wide area network possible. Okay, so this ARPANET is the first wide area network, and this wide area network used packet switching, and it also implemented TCP/IP protocol suite. This also implemented TCP/IP protocol suite. Okay, so it used store and forward concept of Paul Baran. Okay, so the store and forward approach of forwarding a packet. Okay, so the theoretical approach, whatever which was put forward by a scientist known as Paul Baran, was practically implemented by using ARPANET. Okay, so the packet switching and TCP/IP protocol suite that were implemented by ARPANET have remained backbone, or have remained the technical foundation for the in your internet. Okay, so whatever the packet switching and TCP/IP protocol that was implemented by using ARPANET, later it became the technical foundation in your internet. Okay, so let us see why ARPANET. What was the necessity to create a network that is ARPANET? Okay, why we have created ARPANET? Okay, so ARPANET was developed by US. Okay, so the scenario for the development of ARPANET was, so at that time there was a Cold War between US and USSR. So after the World War II, okay, so the World War II was fought between axial power and so between it was fought between two different groups. In one group you had USA, USSR, Britain. Okay, and in another group you had Germany, Japan. Okay, so these were the two. These are the major countries which have participated in World War II. And as you know, USA and its allies have won the World War II. But after winning the World War II, during the World War II, there was a lot of technical development in the field of arms, in the field of satellite tech communication. Okay, so in the field of astronomy. Okay, so and two countries were always looking forward to prove their superiority in the field of defense or in the field of space. Okay, in different technology, two countries, USA and USSR. So USA on one side and USSR, that is Soviet Union. Earlier it used to be known as Soviet Union. Currently it is known as Russia. Okay, so USSR and USA were always, they always had a competitive. So if one invents, if USA invents a technology, USSR would like to show its supremacy by implementing another technology. So in that way they had so there was actually no, they were not fighting actually, but there is a situation that both, if USA and USSR could, there is a, they, it looked like they were always waiting for a war. Okay, so it looked like there is a situation where USA and USSR will be fighting against each other. So such scenario was there. Okay, so this scenario is known as Cold War. So during this time, the USA thought, the USA thought, now there should be, at that time there was no internet or such things. Okay, only local area network was possible, that is LAN. Okay, so the computers within 1 kilometer or within a room, they were able to communicate with each other. So USA thought that we should create a network in a such a way that there should be whatever the data or the information that should be able to transmit it from one part of the country to other part of the world. So it might be regarding military information, or it might be regarding scientific research. Okay, so whatever the research that has been done at one university or one research center, it should be able to the such information should be able to be transmitted to the, that information should be able to shared with the other university. Okay, so in this way the USA thought that there should be some sort of network where one computer, where one university will be able to share information with other university. Okay, so they, so such network. Okay, so USA Department of Defense present at USA, Department of the Defense present at USA, Department of Defense of United States of America developed, has funded for the ARPANET. So Department of Defense of United States of America funded for the development of network where one system, where uh, systems that are geographically divided should be able to communicate with each other. So such network was uh, given a name ARPANET. ARPANET means Advanced Research Project Agency Network. Okay, Advanced Research Project Agency Network. And this network, whenever a computer is part of this network, even though when they are separated by uh, geographically, they will be able to share the information. And this network is not a telecommunication network, it is a computer network. It is a computer network, and often it is a computer network. And these computers, when they are separated geographically, they will be able to share the information between each other. They will be able to share the information between each other. Okay, so so the intention of ARPANET was to create a network of computers that could exchange the defense and scientific information that were distributed geographically. Okay. So as I said, the Department of the Defense funded the ARPANET and wanted it to be a redundant network with no central controller. So redundant network means even if some part of the ARPANET is damaged, even if one of the, for example, even if one of the university system is damaged or the network is damaged, the the other part should be able to communicate with the remaining system, should be able to communicate with each other. So such thing is known as redundancy. Such thing is known as redundancy. Okay, and there is no central controller in ARPANET. Why? Because why there is no central controller? The Department of Defense wanted a ARPANET to be a reliable and redundant network. It wanted the ARPANET to be a reliable and redundant computer network. Okay, so and also it did not have any central controller. Why it did not have any central controller means, see, if you are having a central controller in a network, then if that central controller is damaged or if it is destroyed, then the entire communication network fails. So to avoid such scenario, they thought that there should not be any central controller, and the ARPANET network should be a redundant and uh, reliable network. Okay. So during the ARPANET first the ARPANET was formed between four universities. So four universities were selected. So and that means the computers that are a computer or one computer or the network at each of these universities will be able to communicate with the other three university computers. So a computer situated at one university will be able to communicate with the computers that are present in the all the remaining three universities. Okay, so this was the these four universities. The following universities were selected to be a part of ARPANET. So the four universities are University of California, okay, Stanford Institute, University of California Santa Barbara, and University of Utah. Okay, so these four universities were selected to be a part of ARPANET. Okay, so the ARPANET, it became operational in 1969. But the idea to create ARPANET came in under 1965. Okay, the ARPANET, the idea to create ARPANET has uh, the idea to create ARPANET has was first it was first thought in 1965. Okay, in 1965, the Department of Defense, that it thought that it should have a network so that the computers will be able to transmit the information from one part of the country to other part of the country. Okay, so but the ARPANET was created by 1969. ARPANET was created, or it became operational or functional by the year 1969. The thought of the the thought of creating ARPANET uh, has started in the year it started in the year 1965, but the synthesis or the implementation of ARPANET has taken place in the year 1969. Okay. So in ARPANET, the network consisted of subnets and host computers. Okay. The network consisted of subnets and host computers. Okay. So in ARPANET, the subnet is made up of IMPs. IMP is nothing for interface message processor. IMP is nothing but interface message processor. Okay, so that means this interface message processor is nothing but a mini computer. It is a mini computer. Okay, and this mini computer acts as a mediator and carries the data between four hosts that are connected to the network. Okay, so interface message processor, it will take care of routing, it will take care of packet switching. Okay, so it will perform network related operations. Okay, the IMPs perform network related operations. Okay, so each IMP is connected to at least two IMPs for high reliability and redundancy. Okay, so how you are able to achieve reliability and redundancy? Okay, you'll be able to see once we go through the uh, diagram, or that is network architecture of the ARPANET. Okay, so but here each IMP acts as a mediator and carry it. What is the IMP? IMP is the interface message processor, and it acts as a mediator, and it performs switching, it performs routing between the network. Within the network, IMPs will exchange the data, it will perform switching, and it will carry the data between four hosts. Okay, so now see here, this bottom, these are known as IMPs. Okay, these are intermediate message processor, and to intermediate message processor you are connecting host. Okay, so these intermediate message processors are connected by using telecommunication network. These are connected by using telecommunication network, and from this interface message processor you are connected to host by using a wire. A wire is used to connect the interface message processor and a host. Okay, so here you can see you are having 5 IMPs. Okay, interface message processors. Okay, so here you can see now one IMP is connected to at least two IMPs. One IMP is at least connected to two IMPs, and that is at least. So here if you see this IMP, it is connected to more than two, it is connected to three, it is connected to 3, and this also it is connected to 3. Okay, so that is the thing. Now what is the purpose of connecting this in this way means, they thought that whenever you are creating ARPANET, whenever ARPANET is created, it should be created in a such a way that if one of the node fails, if one of the node fails, okay, or one of the within a subnet, if one path fails, there should be alternate path, there should be alternate path, so that if you are if one if there is any damage in one part, there should not be any failure in the network, there should not be any failure in the network. Suppose even if there is uh, at least the remaining part of the system should be able to communicate until that network issue is resolved. Okay, so for that, if you take this case, now for example this host wants to communicate with this host, okay, by using ARPANET. This host is nothing but a computer, and this is also another computer. Now this computer wants to communicate with this computer. Now uh, so here first it will send its information to its interface message processor, and that interface message processor will store the information, it will store whatever the data that is transmitted by this host, it will store, and it will select the path, and it will try to forward that data through that path. Suppose if this IMP is damaged, suppose if this IMP is damaged, so then here it will take this alternate route. Okay, so if this is fine, the data will be transmitted through this path. But if this network, if this interface message processor is damaged, then the host will take this path, it will take this path and transmit the data from this host to one. So a single damage, and suppose if this in another case, suppose if this is damaged and if this is all right, so it may take this way. Okay, so there is a possibility of alternate route. Okay, so in ARPANET, while designing the uh, ARPANETs, during the design of the network model, okay, or network topology, while designing the topology of the ARPANET, the defense Department of Defense of US, that of United States, they gave a specification that the ARPANET should be a redundant network, redundant and um, redundant and reliable network. So to give it redundant and reliability, the subnet was designed in this way. The subnet was designed in this way. Okay, so that is the thing. Now earlier, in ARPANET only 4 nodes were part of ARPANET. Only 4 nodes were part of ARPANET. Now later, after in due course, when the it, after the successful transmission of data between the four nodes present in ARPANET, later on, then Harvard University at Massachusetts, okay, it also became part of ARPANET. Then MIT Institute, okay. So in this way, different universities and different research centers within the United States of America started have started or have different universities in America have been connected by using ARPANET. Okay, so when once the ARPANET between the four universities was successful, the remaining many universities started were many universities have also been uh, joined in the ARPANET. Many universities have also joined in ARPANET, or the computers present at different universities have been a part of ARPANET. Okay, so slowly the size of the ARPANET, the number of nodes present in ARPANET started to increase. Okay, so from 4 nodes, the size has increased to 8, then 15, and so on. Okay, so first few universities present in US were connected via transmission lines. Okay, then even after sometimes around in 1973, universities present at UK and Norway were also connected to ARPANET. Okay, so universities present at UK and Norway were also connected to ARPANET by using satellite communication. Okay, so in US, whatever the universities are there, they have used a transmission line, normal your telephone telecommunication network to form ARPANET, but when it came to UK and Norway, they have used the satellite links to connect to the ARPANET. Okay, so here you can see this was in 1969, where only four universities were part of the network. Where only four universities were part of the network. Now in 1970, so more than four universities have been joined, and this is 1972 and this is 1973. So you can see many number of systems, many number of universities that are spread across different geography have been have come together, and they have formed a network known as ARPANET. Okay, so when ARPANET was created, many applications related to computer were also developed. So some application protocols like Telnet, FTP, email were developed. Okay, so Telnet, we have Telnet stands for your is about, that means Telnet stands for remote login application protocol. FTP stands for file transfer protocol, and email, as you are well aware of this thing, email. Okay, so electronic mail application. So all these applications were developed after creating ARPANET. So once a network was developed, so after developing the network, the application protocols, so different applications. Okay, so once the network was developed, so in what way you can use the network, in what way you can use the network, so that application protocols were also developed. So application protocols like Telnet, FTP, email were developed. Okay, so even after, during the due course of ARPANET, around 1983, TCP/IP was introduced as communication protocol in ARPANET. Okay, so TCP/IP as a communication protocol was introduced in ARPANET. Okay, so that it was introduced in 1983. Okay, so this was the development of ARPANET. This was the development of ARPANET, and the ARPANET after around 1990. Okay, once the ARPANET started to develop, okay, so the Department of Defense, uh, it came out of the ARPANET. Okay, it came out of the ARPANET, and it formed a separate network. it formed a separate military network. Okay, and seeing the different applications at earlier, the ARPANET's intention was to share the defense information, research information, scientific information between different universities. But later on, after many application protocols like Telnet, FTP, email were developed, and this were very use. This have a these applications had a commercial application. These applications had a commercial. These applications were very commercial. Okay, they could be used for commercial purpose. So now the ARPANET was decommissioned. Okay, ARPANET was decommissioned in 1990. As why it was decommissioned means many other networks came into picture like CSNet. Okay, different networks came into picture. Okay, now but many concepts that were used to create ARPANET were helpful in creating commercial internetworking of systems known as internet. Okay, so whatever the TCP/IP, whatever the store and forward, okay, so all these things which were developed, and also the applications like Telnet, FTP, email. Okay, still now you are having, even now you are using email. So whatever these applications were there, they have, and the protocols and the technical standards that were used for creating ARPANET, we have utilized the same concepts, same protocols, and same application protocols to develop a new network known as internet. A new network known as internet. Okay, so that is the history of ARPANET. Okay, that is the history of ARPANET. In short, ARPANET is a US Department of Defense funded networking research. Okay, a research to create a network. Okay, and so in the earlier, at the starting stage, they thought, let us see, is it possible if four computers that are situated at different networks, if they are able to communicate with each other. So they started like that. Okay, so when they were able to communicate, so they created a network, and they created a network, and they created a network. Four computers that were situated at different universities were able to communicate with each other. Okay, so after that, then they slowly progressed. They developed the network. Okay, they increased the size of the network to different parts of the country, and also not only within a country, they have also reached to the European countries. Okay, so after that, during that, they have created different application protocols, and also not only application protocols, they have also improved the transmission protocols or the communication protocol to TCP/IP, and all these things were used for developing ARPANET. And after seeing the commercial success of ARPANET, they thought that it can be used for developing of a network for commercial purpose. Okay, so that network that has been developed for commercial purpose with improved protocols and with much more applications is your internet. And even now your internet is evolving, still it is evolving, new applications, new technologies, new protocols, they keep on coming in your internet. Okay, so this is the history of ARPANET. Okay, so let us move on to your www. Okay, so www stands for World Wide Web. World Wide Web. So this World Wide Web, the thought of creating World Wide Web came to Mr. Tim Berners-Lee in the year 1989. Tim Berners-Lee was a British scientist, and he is working in the uh, in a physics lab, that is CERN. CERN is a nuclear physics lab. It is a nuclear physics lab, and this lab is situated in Switzerland. Okay, this lab is situated in Switzerland. Okay, so he came forward
he was a computer scientist and he came forward to create a world wide web. Okay, so a scenario where you can have a browser and server communication. He put forward his ideology to create a web browser and web server kind of communication, so that you will be able to share the information present at one part with the one part of the world or one part of the laboratory with other part of the laboratory. So earlier, CERN is nothing but it is a research institute. It is a research institute. So many scientists used to come and they used to get trained at this research institute. And once they got trained, they used to do their research work at their respective countries. Okay, or at their universities. Okay, so many scientists have been trained and they have worked together at CERN, and after completing their training, okay, they used to move to their home countries or home universities, and they continue to do their research work. Okay, so they thought that the Steve Berners-Lee thought that there should be a way where the researchers or the scientists presented who are scattered throughout the world should be able to communicate with each other. Okay, communicating means should be able to share the data, the research data. Okay, whatever the research they are doing, they should be able to share with the other people. They should be able to share with the other fellow scientists. Okay, so for that he thought that he for that he came up with a solution. That solution is World Wide Web. World Wide Web is a application of internet. It is a application of internet. Okay, so the web was originally conceived and developed to meet the demand for automated information sharing between scientists in the universities and institutes around the world. Okay, so the different scientists and the researchers will be able to share the information. Okay, will be able to share the information around the world. Okay, so the basic idea of WW was to merge the evolving technologies of computer, data networks, hypertext into powerful and easy to use global information system. Okay, so there was many developing technologies during WWW. So the computers were developing, the data networks were developing. Okay, so even your HTML language, that is hypertext markup language, all these things. Okay, Tim Berners-Lee thought that we can put all these things together and create a solution where different people that are distributed geographically will be able to share the data interactively. They can share the data interactively. Okay, so that is the thing. Now, so Tim Berners-Lee, by the end of 1990, he had created the first web server and browser. He created first web server and browser running it CERN, and that demonstrated his ideas. So whatever he said, whatever he thought of creating a method or creating a technology where your computers, data networks, and hypertext coding, he put all these three features together to create a technology and created a web server and web browser. So as you know, web server will contain the web page or the information. Web server will contain the information, and by using the web server and by using web browser, you can get the information that is stored in the web server. Okay, so by using web browser, you will be able to get the information that is stored in the web server. Okay, so that is the thing. So he developed the code for his web server on Next computer. Next is a type of computer that is developed during the that was available during the research time. Okay, so earlier web browser and web server were only available to the working scientists working at CERN. Okay, so only the scientists and the that were working at CERN and its related institutes, they were only able to communicate with the web browser and web server. Okay, so next, earlier web browser could only display text. Okay, so the web browser that was created for the first time, it could only display the text. It could only display the text. Okay, so Tim Berners-Lee wanted to improve the web browser and web server. Okay, he wanted to develop the, he thought that there should be development in the www technology. There should be development in www technology. So Tim Berners-Lee urged the developers to join in the developing of www software. So what did he do? In Tim Berners-Lee, he gave away the basic code, whatever the basic code that was used for creating web browser and web server. He has openly given, he has given to the people who are interested, and he requested if they can further develop this web browser and web server, it will be very helpful. So he gave away the basic code to the people who are interested to work on this web browser and web server, so that they could develop this web browser and web server, and it could be used for and further there could be development in this technology. Okay, so due to this, in 1993, National Center for Supercomputer Application, uh, they have they took this basic, whatever the basic web browser and web server, they took this basic web browser and web server, and they have improved it. Okay, they have further improved it, and they created a Mosaic browser. Okay, they have released a browser, and that browser name is Mosaic browser. Okay, Mosaic was the first browser that is a geographic that is graphical user interface browser, and it is a user friendly web browser. Okay, Mosaic browser was created by National Center for Supercomputer Application, and it was created in the year 1993. Okay, so this was first commercially this was the first graphical user interface and user friendly web browser. Okay, so next, after developing Mosaic browser, few members the few key members that have developed Mosaic and some and the original web server software that was developed at CERN came together, and they formed a company called as Netscape Communication. Okay, whoever the software engineers or the developers that developed Mosaic and web server at CERN, some of them came together, and they formed a company known as Netscape Communications. They formed a company known as Netscape Communications. Okay, and after the developed Netscape Communication, they developed in this Netscape Communication, they developed a web browser. It is known as Netscape Navigator. Okay, a Netscape Navigator was developed. Okay, in the it was developed by the at the end of year 1994. Okay, so at December 1994, the Netscape Navigator browser was developed. Okay, and this was the Netscape Navigator was the first commercially available web browser. Okay, so before that, the Mosaic web browser, it was only available for the uh, at the research institutes. It was only available to the research institutes. So to avoid that thing, okay, so to get a so in a first step to uh, develop a commercially available web browser, uh, the Netscape Navigator has been created.
Okay, the Netscape Navigator has been created by the Netscape Communication by the year end of 1994. Okay, and this Netscape Navigator had many features, many new features compared to Mosaic. Mosaic was developed by this NCSA. Okay, it was developed by NCSA, and this Netscape Navigator was developed by some members from NCSA and from some data scientists at CERN. Okay, so so when Mosaic was developed, they thought there were some more features. Okay, so some features like security, okay, and some commercial features, okay, some user friendly features, okay, and a graphical display or some sort of easy to use. Okay, so such features were available in this Netscape Navigator. Why you required security? Why you required security means, for whenever, if you want to share any, uh, if there was no security, then there is a chance that the data could be uh, what it could be, uh, someone could read your data. Okay, if you only want to share the information with certain user, okay, if you want to share the information only to specific user, okay, so if it is if even the other users were able to get to your information, okay, so then that would create a problem. Okay, so it has security features. Okay, so the security features, um, due to security features you had many applications. Okay, as you had security features, it can be used for commercial applications. Okay, it can be used for commercial applications or commercial transactions, so that means banking related. Okay, your web browser could be used for banking related operation, and also you can do encryption, you can encrypt the data. Okay, so all these things were possible once all these features were available in Netscape Navigator. Okay, so after Netscape Navigator has been developed, a Spyglass is a Spyglass Inc. Okay, that is this this is a commercial arm of NCSA. Okay, so after developing Mosaic browser, they thought they thought they have developed, they improved the Mosaic web browser, and they released a new web browser known as Internet Explorer version 1. Okay, and Internet Explorer version 1 was released in August 1995. Okay, so you are having two web browsers. One is Mosaic, one is Netscape Navigator by Netscape Communications, and one is Internet Explorer version 1. Okay, so the so slow, and not only these two web browsers, there were many web browsers. Not only these two web browsers, there were many web browsers like Opera. Okay, even Opera was developed by Telenor. Developed this Opera. Okay, Telenor, a Norwegian company, that is a Norway company. Telenor is a Norway company. They have developed Opera. Okay, not only these three, there were around 500 different kinds of browsers during that period. But because Tim Berners-Lee and CERN, they have they have put the code, whatever the code that has been used to develop the basic web browser and web server, they have put in open. They have put it in open source. They have put that in the open source. That means anyone can use that source code and develop the source code. Okay, so due to that, many people have come up with different kinds of web browsers, but among them the famous were Netscape Navigator and this Internet Explorer, and even Opera was also a bit famous. Okay, so in 1994, Tim Berners-Lee founded the World Wide Web Consortium. Okay, so it is also known as W3C. Okay, that is World Wide Web Consortium. Okay, and this World Wide Web Consortium, okay, that is also known as W3C. Okay, so it is also known as W3C. Okay, that is World Wide Web Consortium. Okay, so it is also known as W3C. Okay, that is World Wide Web Consortium. Okay, and this World Wide Web Consortium, this World Wide Web Consortium was found at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Okay, this World Wide Web Consortium was found at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Okay, so and all the people who are interested to develop the World Wide Web applications like web browser and web server, whoever is interested to contribute, or whoever have contributed very much to web browser and web server related architecture. So all the famous people are this have been part of this W3C consortium, and Tim Berners-Lee is the chairman. Okay, uh, he was appointed as the chairman of this W3C consortium. Okay, and many institutes like CERN, ARPA, and also European Commission, all of them have supported this W3C consortium. Okay, so the basic vision of this W3C was to standardize protocols and technologies used to build the World Wide Web. Okay, whatever, so there should be standardized, the World Wide Web should be standardized. Okay, why? Because when different people are creating different web browsers, okay, and different kinds of web servers, there should be some standardized technology. Okay, so that they'll be able to, so if, for example, if I create a web page, that web page should be, you could any that web page could be seen by using any of the browser. If you use a Chrome, or if you are using a Internet Explorer, or if you are using a Mozilla, or if you are using Opera, or if you are using Safari. Okay, so you should be able to view the web page by using any browser. Any browser should be able to, you should be able to view the web page. Okay, so there should be some sort of standards. Okay, and whatever the protocols, you should be using some sort of standard protocols, so that everyone will be able to use the uh, there will not be any shortfalls in the technology. Okay, so for that purpose they thought that creating a W3 consortium, if there is any new technology implemented in World Wide Web, okay, so it should be able to follow the standards that are created by W3C. Okay, that is World Wide Web Consortium. Okay, so that was the purpose to create this World Wide Web Consortium. Okay, World Wide Web Consortium. Okay, and so Tim Berners-Lee was responsible for all these things. He was responsible for HTML language development, that is hypertext application of creation of web page, and he was responsible for using HTTP, implementation of HTTP client software and server software. Okay, so that is and he was the person who has first created a web browser and web server. Okay, so first web browser was in the form of a command. It is in the form of a command. Okay, so right now www is a very famous application of internet. It is very famous application of internet. Okay, so after any application, any web page, if you want to watch any web application, if you want to, any web page you want to watch. Okay, in all the browsing. Okay, so whenever you are using a web browser, so it is nothing but you are using www. Okay, so the communication between web browser and web server, they follow the, it is nothing but it is the application of www. Okay, so that is the thing about your World Wide Web. Okay, see you in this class, and we'll meet in the next class. Thank you.